Well, hey there, everybody. Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the YouTube channel. My name, of course, is, you can see right there, John Campea. It is great to have you guys joining me here for our very first Mint Mobile Hotline questions of the week, as well as a bit of an open mic. Now, you guys know, if you watch the show, that we have a brand new sponsor on. They've actually been a sponsor for a little while now, but Mint Mobile. And one of the things that they have helped us create is the Mint Mobile Hotline question of the day, when we do one question every day on the John Campea Show, sometimes two, or on Friday we had a special one where we had like all day questions from Mint Mobile. So what we decided to do, though, is because we had so many people, like a lot more people than we anticipated, calling in questions, I thought, you know what? We're never going to be able to answer all the questions that get called in, but we could probably answer a few more of them. So why not once a week? Why don't I gather up 4 or 5 or 6 of my favorite questions that people phoned in, and we'll address them here in a video. So that way we get 1 or 2 every day on the John Campea Show, and we'll get, like 5 more in a weekly one here. And I figured, since it's the weekend and we're going to be here live, why not take some questions as well? So after I'm done with the 5 Mint Mobile Hotline questions, we will go over and take some of your live questions. Now, I'm only going to leave the super chats open for a couple of minutes here because I don't have a lot of time tonight, because Ann and I, tonight, we're going to go see Jerry Seinfeld. I've never seen Jerry Seinfeld in concert. He's one of the greatest comedians of all time. And we're going to get to go and watch him in concert tonight. So I am personally very, very excited about that. And so we got a little bit of time here tonight. So let's do that. So anyway, guys, without any further ado, let's start getting into the question, shall we, that you guys have sent in on the Mint Mobile Hotline. So let's get into question number 1 right now.
Hi, my name's Cameron from Thackerville, Oklahoma. And I just wanted to hear y'all's thoughts on the future of Star Wars. Right now, of course, we know The Mandalorian and Ahsoka and all these things are heading to probably the retaking of Mandalore or something. But in terms of movies, what really is the future for Star Wars? I just can't see it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, what is going on with Star Wars? Now, we've got a couple of really exciting things Star Wars related that have been on Disney Plus. Mandalorian Season 2. Unfortunately, Obi-Wan, I didn't think Obi-Wan was terrible, but it wasn't all that good. Book of Boba Fett was bad. I mean, Book of Boba Fett had some highlights. It certainly had some enjoyable things about it, but at the end of the day, it wasn't really that great of a show. It was bad. It was bad. But we got a couple of exciting things coming. Andor is great. I mean, Andor is just straight up great. It's going to make people fall in love with Star Wars again. Like, it's really that good. It's really more, it feels more like an HBO show than it does like a Disney Plus show. And you'll see what I mean once you watch it. Acolyte is coming. I think that sounds amazing. Mandalorian Season 3 is coming. That sounds great. So there's a bunch of stuff to be excited about. But the thing is, Star Wars is a movie franchise, right? Star Wars is a movie franchise. And that's where its true glory is on the big screen. The problem, of course, is that they recently got bit in the ass. Because Solo, while I personally think Solo was quite a good movie. I really like Solo myself. But Solo was the first Star Wars flop. And then I love The Force Awakens. I think The Force Awakens is great. I think The Last Jedi is pretty good. There's things about The Last Jedi that I love, and there's things about The Last Jedi that I don't like very much. But overall, I like it. And then The Rise of Skywalker was just terrible. Rise of Skywalker is terrible. So you've now got Lucasfilm that is looking and said, well, we've really taken a few shots. We've really had our ass bitten on with the movie franchise lately. Let's retreat back to something that's a little bit more safe. Well, John, what do you mean when you say it's a little bit more safe? Well, let's look for a second at The Rise of Skywalker, right? It's a movie, and it was terrible. And when that movie is terrible, people still talk about it today. Like, we still talk about how bad that movie was, right? It lingers, it goes on, and it's a big deal when it's bad. But when you look at something like Book of Boba Fett, It was bad, but guess what? Like after it was done, and this is, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm not saying it's fair or unfair, but right or wrong, fair or unfair, we look at it because it's a TV show and we just don't think it's that important. So it's like Rise of Skywalker is bad, and it's like that's all we can talk about. And we still talk about it today. And it's a huge deal that that thing was bad. Book of Boba Fett is bad, and yeah, we'll talk about it being bad while it's on, but as soon as it's done, we're like, whatever, it was just a Disney Plus show. Like, am I wrong? Am I wrong in saying that? That is what happened. Rise of Skywalker's terrible. We talk about it all the time. Book of Boba Fett's bad. And it's like, okay, but we don't need to talk about it anymore because after all, it was just a TV show, quote unquote, right? So it feels like Star Wars right now, maybe it's Kathleen Kennedy, maybe it's her bosses, I don't know. But it feels like Star Wars right now wants to play it a little bit safe. And I'm not saying I fault them on that. I'm absolutely not saying I fault them on that they want to play it a little bit safe right now, because once you've gotten burned, you do feel like you want to retreat something that's a little bit safer for now, because if they put out another movie and it bombs, but the movies is where Star Wars needs to be, right? The movies is where Star Wars needs to be. And I really hope they get back to it soon. So, I mean, when is this Taika Waititi movie coming? When is this Kevin Feige movie coming? When are they going to try to do something with the older public? I don't know, but that's where it needs to be. And again, I'm really looking I can't wait for you guys to see Andor. I'm really looking forward to Acolyte, and I'm really looking forward to Mandalorian Season 3, absolutely, but the movies is where it's supposed to be. And that's where Star Wars and Lucasfilm is afraid to go right now. And again, I'm not saying I blame them completely because I kind of get it, but I mean, that's where they need to go, and I hope that's where they ultimately live. Anyway, guys, there's my thoughts on that. So with that down, let's get into our question number 2. Here it is.
Hey, John and crew, this is Digital Ronin. I just wanted to call in and say, episode 4 of Rings of Power really brought it home for me. I think that the show is finally coming into its own, and I've got to say, Robert Aramayo as Elrond is just absolutely crushing it. He is the soul of the show, and he's killing it. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, man, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, as far as Rings of Power goes, hey, look, we've got right now 2 high-end fantasy genre shows going on right now in Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, and Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. I want this to come across right. I'm not trying to bag on anybody or anything. I'm just saying, though, right now, 4 episodes in my personal opinion, House of the Dragon is the show that's ahead. It's not a race. It's not a competition. I get it. I understand. But as 2 shows that I'm really, wanting to see, House of the Dragon right now is the better show. Now, getting on to Rings of Power, it's been my number 1 most anticipated show for the last 3-4 years, ever since they announced it. This has been the show that I've been most excited about, that I have most anticipated. The problem, though, is when I went in to see the first 2 episodes, I got to see the first 2 episodes a little bit early at a fan theatrical screening. I quite didn't like the first episode. I mean, just straight up, I didn't like it. As a matter of fact, I was so kind of over the first episode, that if they weren't playing the second episode immediately, because at that fan screening, they played the first 2 episodes back to back. If they hadn't played the second episode immediately, I might not have never watched the second episode, because I really thought the first episode was that slow. I didn't think it was that terrible, but I thought it was that slow. I didn't like it. It was a disappointment to me, whatever. Now, thankfully, I did watch the second episode, and I was like, okay, that was better. That was better. Then I saw episode 3, and I'm like, okay, now, like Rob and I were talking about this before too, where it's like in episode 3, that's when we started to get a picture of what I think this show was going to try to be. And I was like, all right, okay, now I didn't like the first episode. The second episode was enough to keep me around. And now the third episode, now you've got me interested. So episode 4 plays. And while I'm not going to sit here and say it was bloody fantastic, episode 4 of Rings of Power to me started more to look like the show I was hoping for. Does that make sense? Episode 4 of Rings of Power, now it's starting to look like this Lord of the Rings show that I was hoping for and that I was looking forward to. It's taken a while to get here, and maybe it stays up here, maybe it drops off. I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with episode 5. But I gotta say, I quite liked episode 4. I thought episode 4 was quite good. It's the complete opposite of episode 1, which I did not like. So, look, right now, House of the Dragon is still the show to watch right now. Out of all the stuff on TV at this very moment that's airing right now, House of the Dragon is the show to watch. But I will say that the Rings of Power is finally starting, like 4 episodes in, but it's now starting to look like the show I'd been hoping for and had been waiting for and had been anticipating for so long. And let's see if it keeps going in that direction. As far as the dude's playing Elrond, you're right. That dude right now is the heart and soul of the show. As a matter of fact, the heart and soul of the show is Elrond and Durin. Like the moment in episode 3 when Elrond and Durin got together, it's like, okay, now that was the first time in 3 episodes that I really started to feel like this show was really starting to click. And I'm enjoying that a lot. I like what's going on in Numenor. That stuff is really interesting. I'm going to be interested to see what happens in episode 5 when we get back to the Harfoots as we learn more about the Stranger. So yeah, I think the show's been getting much better, but it still has a little way to go, in my opinion, to catch up with House of the Dragon. So that's kind of my thoughts on it right now. All right, let's get on to a third Mint Mobile Hotline question of the day, shall we? Here's the third one.
Hey, John. My name is Israel King, and I was just wondering, with House of the Dragon, with its critic and audience reception and also how many views it's been getting on HBO Max, a lot of other streaming services have been trying to create their equal to it. Like for Amazon, it would be Rings of Power, or like you were talking about the other day, how for Netflix it might be Avatar. My question is, could Andor possibly be Disney Plus's answer to House of the Dragon? Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot for calling that in, man. Yeah, it feels like ever since Game of Thrones came out, it feels like every network has been looking for, because seriously, how many times have we all heard this? It feels like every network has been looking for its Game of Thrones. Hell, even HBO. Once Game of Thrones went off air, even HBO was looking for its next Game of Thrones. And who would have thought that their next Game of Thrones would literally be another Game of Thrones show in House of the Dragon? So Amazon has their Rings of Power. That is their answer to, their Game of Thrones. We heard somebody talking the other day about, could Netflix be looking at this Avatar: The Last Airbender? If they mature that show up a little bit and do a little bit of adapting, that is a very, very rich world. That world of Avatar Aang and The Last Airbender, that world is very, very rich. Now, if they adapt it, mature it up a little bit, give it a little bit of more heavier feel that I think that world can do, then I think it is very possible that Avatar: The Last Airbender, if done right, and we'll see what happens, I'm not making any predictions, but if done right, that show could become Netflix's kind of Game of Thrones. Whether it will or won't, we'll see. Who knows? But House of the Dragon for HBO has definitely become their next Game of Thrones. The ratings are showing it. The critic responses are showing it. The audience responses are showing it. I am flipping loving this show. Somebody asked me a little bit earlier today what movies I'm going to go to this weekend. And I said, I'm actually not getting out to any movies this weekend because today has been a very busy day for me. Plus tonight, Ann and I are going to go see Jerry Seinfeld. But tomorrow it's 2 things. It's football and it's House of the Dragon. Like, it's become now that Thursday night, which is when Rings of Power come out, and Sunday night when House of the Dragon comes out. Those are nights that I keep my schedule clear now. Yeah, don't bother trying to book anything for me on those nights, because those nights are totally set aside. To me, House of the Dragon is absolutely must-watch TV. Okay, but what about Disney Plus? What could theoretically be their Game of Thrones? Could it be Andor? And I would say emphatically no. But John, I thought you said Andor is great. Andor is great. but it's not that broad, epic, sweeping tale that something like Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings are, like a Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon is, like even Avatar: The Last Airbender has the potential of being, if it's, again, matured up, darkened a little bit, it could really be that. You have this huge, world spanning, multiple characters and all that kind of stuff. Andor is a little bit different. It's really not that kind of show. It's an excellent show. It does indeed feel more like an HBO show than a Disney Plus show. And I mean that in a very, very good way. And it's wonderful and fantastic, but it's completely different from A House of the Dragon, Rings of Power, this political intrigue, mystery, broad, wide scoping thing. It's just a different sort of a thing. So what could Disney make its own version of Game of Thrones? Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know what that could be. But I don't think it's Andor. As good as Andor is, and I'm very excited for you guys to see it, but as good as Andor is, it could not be that. AJ Red 20 in the live chat just brought something up. I would actually think if any Star Wars show, and I don't think any Star Wars show can be the next Game of Thrones, but if any Star Wars show could, it might be The Acolyte. That feels like it could be on something on that kind of a scale. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but we'll have to see. So yeah, it's a great question about like, what is going to be Disney's? We've seen Netflix's response, Amazon's response, but what could possibly be Disney Plus's response to a Game of Thrones type show? I don't know that they have one, but I don't think it's going to be Andor. All right. Thanks a lot for calling that in, man. Okay. Let's get on to question number 4.
Hi, John. I'm Levi. So with the Avatar theatrical re-release coming before The Way of Water, I've noticed some 3D screenings, some IMAX screenings, but I've also noticed that the film will be playing in high frame rate or HFR. Obviously, we know that this hasn't been super well received. So what are your thoughts on this, and what do you think the audience will think of it? Yeah. Bring on Filthy. Bye.
All right, thanks for calling that in, man. And yeah, we've got, we all know that Avatar: The Way of Water is coming out, but before that is the big re-release. The big re-release of Avatar, the original one that came out, the #1 box office movie of all time is Avatar. Yes, some people forget it is ahead of Avengers Endgame. It is the #1 all-time box office film, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. It's getting re-released, and we're hearing it's being re-released in HDR. HDR, or HFR, high frame rate. Not HDR. HDR is high dynamic range. Sorry about that. High frame rate, HFR. High frame rate has been a real point of contention and controversy for movie and television fans. Hell, even Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie. Do you guys remember this? Tell me in the live chat if you remember this. Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie actually did this public service announcement about how filmmakers don't want you to look at stuff on the brand new TVs that come with this, like, what do they call it, a motion view or all that kind of stuff, whatever, that makes everything look like a soap opera, right? And so Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie did this PSA a while ago where they walk you through how to go into your TVs and turn that damn thing off. And I remember when the Hobbit films came out, particularly the first Hobbit film. And the first Hobbit film came out and it was in this high frame rate. And it was, I'll be honest with you, pretty off-putting, right? Now, the main reason, let's all be clear, the main reason why it was off-putting to us isn't that it's not good, it's that it's just not what we're used to. We are used to 24 frames per second in our movies, right? That is what we're used to, 24 frames. And so this thing comes out, and high frame rate is actually technically superior to regular 24. You're getting more image, you're going to have a smoother image, all that kind of stuff. It is actually in every way technically the superior format, but it is completely not what we are used to having, and therefore it just feels wrong. As we would say, it doesn't look like a movie, right? Because we are conditioned that movies look a certain way, 24 frames per second. That's what we're conditioned to. Now, how will this impact people going to watch Avatar in theaters? Well, it depends, because there's two flavors of HFR. Actually, there's more than two flavors, but there's predominantly two flavors. One is, instead of 24 frames per second, you get 48 frames per second, right? So it's literally doubling the number of frames per second. However, the other flavor of HFR is 60 frames per second. Now, 60 frames per second, to me and my subjective eye, looks noticeably different than 48 frames per second. To me, 48 frames per second looks closer to that traditional movie look. I mean, it doesn't have the traditional movie look, but it looks closer to the traditional movie look than, say, 60 frames per second do. Like, I'm streaming this particular video in 30 frames per second, but the John Campea Show, that we do every day at 10:30 in the morning, that actually is in 60 frames per second. So we do the John Campea Show in 60 frames per second. We don't do it in 48. So I honestly, right now, I simply don't know if this avatar is going to be, when they say HFR, I honestly don't know, do they mean 48 frames per second, which is HFR? Do they mean in 60 frames per second, which is HFR? Or, some projects even done 120 frames per second. So I just don't know what it is. I will say this, though. I am actually quite interested in going back to the theaters and watching Avatar again. It's been a while since I've seen it. Obviously, it's been forever since it's been on the screen. But this is one of those movies that just needs to live on the big screen. And how much of an impact this HFR-ness of it will be, I don't know. I think it'll come down to which flavor will it be. Will it be 48 frames per second? Will it be 60 frames per second? I just don't know. Maybe the information is out there and I just haven't seen it and you guys know. But we'll see. All right, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in. Okay, guys. With that, let's get to our final Mint Mobile Hotline question of the day. Let's get into it here.
Hey, John. My name is Ryan from New York. I was thinking about the Thunderbolts lineup, and it kind of makes sense to me that maybe Disney wants to save money on the VFX and what's been going on, and so they probably switched the lineup to make it easier on them. It costs less. If they had Abomination in there, it would cost a lot more money for all the CGI. I would love to know your thoughts. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, of course, one of the only half decent announcements that they made at that D23. And again, listen, I crap on D23 a lot, but saying D23 isn't actually accurate, because D23 was a huge 3-day long event. Normally, when I'm talking about D23, what I am specifically talking about one thing at that 3-day event, and that, of course, was the Lucasfilm and Marvel presentation, which I thought was a big ball of fart. It was a completely useless big ball of fart. A lot of the other stuff at D23 was actually quite good. But so when you hear me talking about how D23, what I'm really talking about is just that one Saturday morning panel. But there were a couple of semi-interesting things that came out of it. And surprisingly enough, the most interesting thing to me that came out of the Marvel presentation was them talking about Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts, which quite frankly, I was not really all that interested in. Something that I wasn't really looking forward to. To me, it was just another title on the list that, okay, and then there's Thunderbolts. Honestly, wasn't all that excited about it. But at D23, they announced that Florence Pugh was going to be in it, that David Harbour's Guardian was going to be part of it, and that Sebastian Stan was going to be a part of it. Now, characters like Ghost, obviously American Agent, obviously Valentina, like we knew those characters were going to be there. But Yelena, I wasn't sure about. I definitely didn't know that Red Guardian was going to be part of it, and I didn't know that Winter Soldier was going to be part of it. And that announcement literally changed my perception of Thunderbolts to being, that's one of those Marvel projects I'm going to be able to take or leave, to, oh, okay, I see you there, Thunderbolts. All right, I'm interested. It got me interested because I love David Harbour's Guardian. Like, you guys know, I was not a big fan of the Black Widow movie overall. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I wasn't a big fan of it. But the one thing about that Black Widow movie that was outstanding was David Harbour's Red Guardian. I thought he was fantastic, and I love that they're bringing him back into the MCU. I thought that was fantastic. Now, despite the fact that that was pretty interesting and exciting news, that Bucky was going to be in there, Guardian was going to be in there, Yelena was going to be in there, two things that caught people by surprise. Number one, that there was no mention of Zemo, and number two, that there was no mention of Abomination. Now, as far as the Zemo thing goes, I do believe he's going to be there. I talked on the show this week that when you actually went to the official Marvel webpage where they talked about the cast announcements at D23, in the URL of the Marvel official webpage, it literally says Zemo in the URL. So I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was an oversight on their part. Maybe they built that page before they realized they weren't announcing Daniel Bruhl was coming back as Zemo, and they just never changed the URL. Maybe that's, I don't know, but because of that, I do believe that Zemo is going to be in it. Whether he's going to be a member of the Thunderbolts or whether he's going to be who the Thunderbolts are going to be fighting against, no idea at this point, but I do believe Zemo is going to be in there. Okay, but let's talk about the real thing here. Abomination. Now, I'm one of those people that I actually also started to believe that Abomination was going to be a part of the Thunderbolts. And when they did not announce him, I was a little surprised, but when I thought about it, I thought, you know what? We shouldn't be surprised at all if he's not in it. And we've talked about this part on the show before, but I'll just reiterate it here. Literally, if you take all the Thunderbolts combined, and they had to fight just Abomination, that fight's over in 30 seconds. Abomination wipes the floor with everybody. Remember, Abomination went toe-to-toe with Savage Hulk and very nearly beat Hulk. And I'm not saying they're saying that he's that powerful now, but he is OP when you look at the rest of this Thunderbolts crew. Like, honestly, seriously, what's US Agent going to do? What's Bucky going to do? What's Ghost going to do? Like, what are anything going to do? The comparison I made on the John Campea Show was, it's kind of like looking at the Watchmen with Dr. Manhattan. I mean, really, all you needed was Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan can create universes and wipe out all life on Earth if he wanted to. I mean, he's like, you got all these street level characters, Night Owl, woo, and then you have Dr. Manhattan. And that's kind of what it felt like to me. So to me, if Abomination is not in Thunderbolts, I really think that's the reason why. Because all of a sudden that team becomes very one-sided and very top. Like, literally, any problem they face, just send an Abomination. He's Abomination. Done. Simple. Just send an Abomination. And there it's done. And so, me personally, I think it was for story reasons. We still may find out that he is in it. You never know. But if he's not, I personally think it'll be because of story reasons. I don't think it'll be because, as you're mentioning, they're worried about CGI. Because listen, just because one of your main characters isn't a CGI character doesn't mean that your movie isn't going to be packed with CGI, right? It could still be absolutely packed with CGI. And yes, Abomination would be a fully realized CGI character when Blonsky's in that form. I really don't think that's part of the consideration that Kevin Feige has. Now, granted, Kevin Feige doesn't get to make all the shots anymore under Bob Chapek like he did under Bob Iger. But still, I don't think Kevin Feige is going to compromise his creative vision for what he wants for a movie and who he wants in it just because it's going to cost a couple of extra bucks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's possible. Again, Bob Chapek is a different boss than Bob Iger was, and he's taken some of that creative control away from Kevin Feige. But I still believe Kevin Feige is enough in control there that I just don't see Kevin Feige compromising his creative vision just for the sake of a couple of bucks. And so you never know. And by the way, Abomination may end up still being in this thing. I kind of hope he is. It would be kind of cool to see. But if he's not, once again, I think it's because story-wise, it doesn't really make sense to have one character in there who's 5 times more powerful than every other member of the Thunderbolts combined, rather than a matter of CGI budget. But that's a great question, man. It's a great question to bring up. All right, guys. That will do it now for all of the hotline questions that we are taking here today. So now we're going to spend the rest of our time and we're going to hear from you guys who sent in some super chats. I'm going to take some live questions here that you guys have fired in. Now, before we do, we're going to take a second and thank the sponsor of this video. You guessed it. It's the folks at Mint Mobile. Hey guys, we want to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. And now for the plot twist. I'm just kidding, there isn't one. Seriously, Mint Mobile just has premium wireless service from $15 a month. There's no trapping you into a 2-year contract or opening the bill to find these crazy fees. There's no luring you in with free subscriptions to streaming services that you'll forget to cancel and be charged full price for. I used to dread opening my phone bill every month because every time I was opening it, it was like playing roulette. I never knew what the actual price was going to be, and it always seemed to get higher. But not with Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text, plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And if you're worried about the complication of switching things over, don't. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your phone number along with all your existing contacts. So guys, get premium wireless from just $15 a month and no unexpected plot twists at mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Seriously, you'll make your wallet very happy at mintmobile.com/Campea. All right, and thank you to our friends over at Mint Mobile for sponsoring not only this video, for being a major sponsor of the John Campea YouTube channel. So guys, by all means, listen, my phone, why is my phone not here? They literally have become my phone service provider. I pay like less than a third of what I used to pay on my phone bill. I'm very, very happy with them. Make sure you guys go and check them out. Okay, guys, with that now down, we're going to go over and take questions that you guys have been sending in live here. So let me see if I can get us all straightened away here. Where are we starting? We are starting with, there he is. We're starting with Savine86, who writes, have you seen the trailer for the new movie adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front, which releases on Netflix on October 28th? It looks amazing. But knowing the source material, it's probably going to be a really tough watch. You know what's funny? Yes, I have seen that. I think it was Thursday I was at the office and somebody had written in to ask on Thursday's John Campea Show if we had seen that trailer yet. So after the show was done, me, Rob, Chris, Jonathan, we kind of gathered around one of the computers and loaded it up, and wow, it looks really good, man. It looks really good. And it does, you're right. It instantly, just from the trailer, you can tell it's going to be kind of a tough watch. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for bringing that up, man. All right. Josh Kahn writes, 2 of my favorite shows in 2021 were animated shows geared towards adults, Arcane and Invincible. Both announced season 2, but no updates for a long time. Is it bad if neither season 2 doesn't come out until 2024? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad if neither of those come out until 2024. I mean, it'll be unfortunate for us because I want to see the next season of Arcane now. I want to see the next season of Invincible soon. Invincible, somebody will have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but Invincible, I think, is having some legitimate legal problems. I know they're being sued by some of the other creatives who were involved with the show, or the original creator of the comic and stuff like that. And I'm not going to pretend that I completely understand it, but I know they're dealing with legal issues on top of production issues. Again, not going to pretend that I know all that altogether, but man, I think Arcane is the greatest animated series of all time. And that was a show I had zero interest in. Zero. And then I started watching. I'm like, I couldn't get enough of it. It's the Game of Thrones in animated form. It's just absolutely incredible. And I love it. But yeah, you're right. It is starting to look like we're not going to get it until maybe 2024, which again, it's not the end of the world. I mean, as long as we get it, but I do hope somehow, some way we get it sooner than that, Josh. All right. Next up, Alan Jara 91 writes, why haven't they made a Daredevil movie? Well, Alan, this may come as a shock to you. There is a Daredevil movie starring Ben Affleck Jon Favreau, Jennifer Garner, Colin Farrell. And you know what? Screw everybody. I don't care. I love that movie. I love that Daredevil movie. Now, is it as good as the Daredevil Netflix series? No, obviously not. But I love that Daredevil movie. I would go so far as to say that if it were not for the teeter-totter scene, and of course everybody who's seen Daredevil knows the teeter-totter scene. If it were not for the teeter-totter scene, which might be the worst scene in comic book movie history, I would say that Daredevil is a great comic book movie. But the teeter-totter scene is in there that brings it down a lot. But even though it's not a great movie, I still love that movie. So if you haven't checked it out, go and check out that Daredevil movie, man. All right. Next up, we got Richard K. who writes, I think the guy who fell to Earth, probably meant the guy who fell to Earth, in Rings of Power is Gandalf. But it also occurred to me that it could be Saruman. Listen, it very well could be. The predominant theories right now are the stranger, the one who fell in the comet, is either Sauron or Gandalf. Those are the two predominant theories. Chris will also tell you that it could be one of the blue wizards. But one of the other names that not a lot of people are bringing out is that it could be Saruman, the original white wizard before Gandalf took over. And of course, he betrayed Middle-earth and all that kind of stuff, played brilliantly, by Christopher Lee in the Peter Jackson films. That maybe it's Saruman before he broke bad. I mean, I don't know. Or it could be another character altogether they're not even thinking about. But Saruman is not a bad guess, Richard, honestly. All right. Next up, we got Al Renshaw, who writes, does the Hollywood Reporter article change your opinion on Zaslav at all? None. Not in the least. I share the same opinion as Harlov that Zoloff needs to treat people better / show better etiquette. His leadership style is too rough. No, it's not. People who get stuff done will often be perceived that way. The people who get stuff done will often be perceived that way. And listen, here's the thing. People are going to cry and complain that he's canceling. Listen, he's canceling things that need to be canceled. And it looks like, we're going to talk more about this on the John Campea Show on Monday, but it looks like they're not even planning on owning Warner Brothers for all that long. It looks like, and again, we're going to talk about, this came out of the, I think Variety's, or it might have been Deadline that broke this, but it looks like right now, word is coming out that they bought Warner Brothers with the strict intention of getting rid of the dead weight off of it, whipping it into shape, making it more valuable, and then selling it off to Comcast, Universal, NBC Peacock, and selling it off to them, to Comcast. If that's true, that's quite a baller move. But we'll see. But like, if it's true, again, we'll talk about it more on Monday, but it looks like they want to take the value of Warner Brothers, make it a much more attractive buy by getting rid of, onerous contracts and all the shows that are just carrying dead weight for the company, and trying to get the whole thing back in shape and get it up and running and making it a healthier thing, and then instantly selling it for more than what they bought it for. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, it's fascinating. So we'll have to take a look and see how that goes. All right. Next up, we have Future Millionaire. I love that username. Writes, John, picture a three-way match between Adam Aaron, Bob Chapek, and David Zaslav. Who you got winning? Anyway, have a good weekend. Well, listen, Zaslav's got the axe. And Zaslav's the only executive out of the three of them that I think is a good executive. So I'll go with Zaslav, simply because he wields the Mjolnir of the movie world. He wields the axe of Zaslav. All right. Casey Mack writes, another delay from Sony. Yep, we're going to be talking about this on Monday too. They moved Craven back to October and Madam Web into 2024. I hope they don't delay into the Spider-Verse 2 again, because that's the only Sony film I've been really looking forward to. Yeah, listen, man, you and me both. They showed us at CinemaCon 15 minutes, I want to say. Maybe it was 8 minutes. I don't know. I'll go with 15 for now. Maybe I'm just not remembering it. It was many months ago now. But they showed us a big chunk of the opening of Spider-Man. I can't remember if it's called Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, whatever. They showed us a big chunk of the opening of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse Part 2, and it looks awesome. It looks awesome. The feel of it, the tone of it, the texture of it, it just feels like that first one again. And that first one, I think, is a top 10 greatest comic book movie of all time. I think it might be the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I loved it, and I really hope it doesn't get delayed. Because, man, ever since they showed us that first bunch of footage for it at CinemaCon, I have been drooling. Now, it's funny because just on the John Campea Show this week, somebody's bringing it up. It's like, Kraven's supposed to be coming out soon, and we don't have a trailer yet. And what I said at the time was, it's like, well, it's becoming a little bit, it's not unheard of these days that studios start putting out trailers like around 3 to 4 months out before a movie comes out. And right now we're right about the 4-month mark. So I said, if we get another month into it and we don't see a trailer, then I'm going to believe that they're going to be moving Kraven. And sure enough, here we are. They have announced that they're moving Kraven. They're moving Madam Web, which I tell you what, I've been getting more interested in Madam Web ever since we started hearing some of the theories coming out about it. So yeah, I just really hope Spider-Verse 2 doesn't get moved because I'm dying to see that movie. I'm so excited for that one. All right. Next up, Fangblaze writes, just finished Game of Thrones for the first time. Nice. And my God, it's amazing. It's got to be my favorite show of all time. Also, I don't get the hate for season 8. I loved all of season 8. Your mouth to God's ears, Fangblaze. Your mouth to God's ears. Season 8 is great. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what nobody says. I thought season 8 was great. And it set the record for the most Emmy wins. It won more wins than any, season of television in history, all that kind of stuff. I don't care what anybody says. Now, but to be fair, let's call the other side of the coin on this. A lot of people who love Game of Thrones, love Game of Thrones, didn't like season 8. All right? So you and I, Fangblaze, we are in the minority. And that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But it is only fair to point out that a lot of people who deeply love Game of Thrones overall didn't really like season 8. Rob loves Game of Thrones. Chris loves Game of Thrones. And they love the overall show. They love the show overall, but they didn't like season 8. And a lot of people are in that same boat. You and I are clearly in the minority, but I don't know what blinders people have on because season 8 was awesome. Other than the fact that it was truncated, it shouldn't have been shortened. There was no excuse for that. That was a D&D decision, and it was a terrible decision to make. But other than that, I thought season 8 was great. So you and I can be in that very, very small little club together. While the rest of the world hates on it, you and I can appreciate it for the greatness that it was. Wasn't the best season of Game of Thrones, but I thought it was pretty damn good. Anyway, either way, man, I'm glad you enjoyed the show overall, regardless of how we feel about season 8. All right. The Inexpensive Lawyer writes, Magic Mike 3 theatrical, # let's make it train. Oh, I like that. Let's make it train. I see you. I give you that one. Look, I'm not going to pretend that I'm a big Magic Mike guy. And let's be honest, too, Magic Mike never made tons of money. This is a project that very well might be better off going straight to streaming. But hey, I want every movie to get the big screen experience and the big screen treatment. So if somehow, some way, some fan movement can get Magic Mike 3 on the big screen, go for it, man. I'd be thrilled for you. All right. Dylan Payton writes, thanks for always being amazing, John. Thank you so much. Been a fan since the first episode of Jedi Council. Oh, yeah, Jedi. Actually, then you remember Jedi Council used to be me, Christian. I was just talking with Christian on the phone yesterday. Me, Christian, and my buddy Paul Enns, who was the director of LucasArts. My buddy Paul Enns was actually a big senior guy over at working for Lucas when they were making the Star Wars prequels. And I don't know if you guys remember their little mockumentary that they did about R2-D2 called R2-D2 Behind the Dome. My buddy Paul Enns was actually the director of that, and he was involved in a lot of stuff there at that time, and he was our first guy on Jedi Council with us. So thank you for that, dude. I appreciate that a lot. All right. Inexpensive Lawyer writes, Canelo or Triple G? Listen, I'm not a big boxing guy. I'm much more an MMA guy. But I watched the first two Canelo Triple G fights. Triple G won both those fights. I have, and this is why I gave up on boxing. Boxing is so rigged. Like, it is so rigged. Like, listen, their first fight, Triple G clearly won that fight. Clearly. And I will grant you that their second fight was closer. I will grant you that. But I still thought it was fairly definitive that Triple G won that fight. But whatever. So they called the first one a draw, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And then the second one they gave to Canelo. I'll never understand that. But here's the thing. Triple G's gotten older, right? He hasn't gotten any younger. And Canelo is still kind of in his prime. So I would love to see Triple G get a little bit of sweet justification and justice. But I got a feeling Canelo wins this one. Triple G has just gotten older, and Canelo's still kind of in his prime. So I kind of think Canelo's going to win that. But I'm gonna hope that Triple G gets his revenge. All right. Let's see. Magic K writes, what's your take on Zaslav decided to sell Warner Brothers Discovery to Comcast? Again, I don't know that that's actually true. There are reports going around by that, and I don't mean to dodge the question right now, Magic, but we're going to talk about this pretty in depth on Monday on the John Campea Show. And that'll give me more time to do more reading and more research on it and make a few phone calls and find out what I can about this whole thing. And so I don't really have a lot to say about it right now. All I've heard is I've just heard the report. I mean, listen, it sounds like a great, you know what it is? You guys ever watch like Flip or Flop? You know, the home renovation show where basically these people buy a house that's maybe kind of run down and they fix it up beautifully and then they sell it for a ton more money than what they bought it for, right? It's called house flipping, right? And there's tons and tons of TV shows about it. And probably maybe the most famous one is Flip or Flop. The report makes it sound like that's exactly what David Zaslav's doing. It sounds like Zaslav and Discovery looked at Warner Brothers under AT&T and said, that place is a bloody mess. That place is an absolute bloody mess. I bet you we could buy it from AT&T, and I bet you we can fix it up. We'll get rid of the dead weight. We'll fix up DC. We'll do all this kind of stuff. We'll make Warner Brothers more valuable than it was under AT&T. And then once we've got it to that place of being more valuable, we'll sell it to another major studio who actually wants it. In this case, maybe it's Comcast. I hope that that's not the case. Again, we're going to talk more about this on Monday. But if it is, it may not be a bad business move. I'm seeing somebody like Raphael E in the live chat saying, what did Zaslav fix? Well, number one, Zaslav has been cutting a bunch of dead weight away from Warner Brothers. Projects and properties and IP that do not make the company any money, but rather just cost the company money in licensing and fees and residuals and stuff like that, but they don't actually make any money for the company, and stuff that doesn't really go along with the corporate identity they want Warner Brothers to have. So he's stepped in there and started axing projects. He also took a Batgirl movie that clearly was not good. Like, even people coming out of the screening of it said, yeah, that looked, the phrase coming out of the Batgirl screening was, that looked like an expensive CW show. And it was just going to hurt DC's reputation more and make people, the general perception of the audience out there, just further their belief that DC is an inferior product to Marvel. And they said, no, just kill it. Because that's going to hurt the overall brand. If we put this out, it's going to hurt the overall brand. Kill it. And they did. And that took guts to do it. It took guts. And while everybody else who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about goes, you shouldn't have canceled it. Meanwhile, they're making these moves that is going to make Warner Brothers more valuable. And if they do turn around and sell it to Comcast and they make a big profit on it, it's genius, but I would kind of like to see them run it. But I don't know. Like, we'll have to say again, I am only hearing about a few of these things on the surface level. We'll know more about it and talk more about it on Monday once I've had a chance to read more up on it. Because maybe it's not even true, but who knows? We'll see. All right. Next up, Fangblaze writes, just ordered my first hot toy. Nice. Tony's Silver Centurion armor from Iron Man 3. Nice. Didn't get a lot of screen time, but it's one of my favorites of his suits. You know what? Some of my actual favorite hot toys that I've seen, including some in Rob's collection, are the ones that are a little bit more obscure. Like they might be of the characters we know, but it's like of characters in a certain outfit or from a certain scene that doesn't get a lot of attention or we don't really talk about a lot. But that looked awesome. And that could very well be one of those Fangblaze. Hey, listen, take care of it. Hot toys are big investments, like several $100s to get those things. So I hope you enjoy it. Just don't go crazy and start ordering 10 of them and driving yourself broke. Just be very, very careful with it, buddy. All right, next up. Mr. Hank Dunn writes, my Regal has a secret movie next week, probably Black Ada. Oh, you're probably meaning Black Adam. Ooh, that would be sweet. That would be sweet to see Black Adam. By the way, would this be a bad time to tell you somebody has shown me a little bit of Black Panther? I'm just going to drop that and then move on. But Black Adam, yes, if that secret screening is a Black Adam screening, that would be amazing. That would be, I hope it is. I mean, that's the one thing though, right? When you go into these secret screenings, you never know if you're going to get something that you're really looking forward to or if it's something that you're not really looking forward to. But hopefully it is Black Adam. I'm such a big Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson fan. I don't think they've done a very good job marketing this film, but hopefully this one will be great. All right. Arjan writes, over under 50% King Viserys dies in tomorrow's episode. Yeah. You know what? No, I don't think. Okay, I have no idea. Just to be clear, I don't actually know the answer to this. I don't know. But my guess would be he does not die in this next episode. I think he's dying. Like, I think when we see him in this episode, he's a dying man. But I have a feeling he won't die in this episode, but I don't know. Maybe. I'm going to say under 50%, but not a whole hell of a lot under 50%, Arjun. Because, I mean, it does sound like when you look at the preview for the next episode and you see, Otto saying to his daughter, prepare Aegon to rule. Like, it sounds like the king's about to die. It sounds like he's about to die, which is too bad because Paddy Considine playing King Viserys has been awesome in this. I'm going to miss him when he's not on the show anymore. All right. We're at Mickey Mouse is Supreme writes, hey, John, wanted to see if you've seen Bronx Tale and The Great Gatsby, both iterations. Two of my favorite movies of all time. Wanted to get your quick thoughts and experiences on them both. Well, I mean, like here's the thing about The Great Gatsby. And the reason this is fresh in my mind is because, of course, we've been talking a lot about his new movie, the Elvis thing, right? But he, of course, did the one with Leonardo DiCaprio. I did not. There are some people who really dislike that movie. And I don't get that. Like, I don't think it's his best movie. It's not as good as, I don't know, Moulin Rouge, which I think is his best one. But it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Bronx Tale, I can't remember the newer iteration. I can't even remember the newer iteration of it. So anyway, I'm just focusing on Great Gatsby. But yeah, I actually think that DiCaprio Great Gatsby isn't bad. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's bad. I see somebody in the live chat is saying, who is it? Insomniac saying it's Leo's worst movie. I don't think so. I think Leo's worst movie is the one he did with, help me on the live chat, guys. It's the one he did with Clint Eastwood, where he played, I think it's just called Edgar. Is that it? Where he played J. Edgar Hoover? I personally think that was Leo's worst movie. Some people say Blood Diamond, but I kind of really like Blood Diamond. I like Blood Diamond. I thought that he did that one with Jaimon Hansu as well. I like that one. That's just me. All right. Next up, Scotty Hale writes, a wedding in Westeros can go wrong? LOL. Yeah. Oh no. A wedding in Game of Thrones. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. They showed in the preview for the next episode that there's going to be a wedding and it gets messy. It started looking like a drunk Italian wedding. where all hell starts to break loose. So I don't know if it's going to be like Red Wedding scale, but it sounds like some bad stuff's going to happen. All right. Tim Platt writes, I don't know if you remember NBC having must-see TV, but Wednesday through Friday is about to be must-see streaming. Talk about an overflow of riches and shows. Yeah, we are about to get... Well, what's Friday? What's Friday? Because we're about to get Tuesday at midnight, or Wednesday for most people is going to be Andor. Thursday night is going to be Rings of Power, because that comes out at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, midnight Eastern Standard Time. But what's Friday? Game of Thrones. I mean, at least here, Game of Thrones is Sunday, so I'm not quite sure what the Friday one is. But listen, we got Handmaid's Tale just started back up again. Atlanta, the new season is coming out now. So we got a whole bunch of stuff coming in. It's a good time to be a TV fan, man. It is a good time to be a TV fan. All right. Next up and final one of the day comes to us from Connor Not Found writes, very excited for Peter Pan and Wendy next year. Very positive opinion coming from D23 footage. Well, you know what's funny is that outside of the Lucasfilm and Marvel panel, there was some stuff that got some pretty good pop and pretty good buzz from people. Disenchanted looks pretty fun. A lot of people were very excited about that. I mean, Pinocchio, wah, wah. But Disenchanted looked really good. I don't care what anybody says. That new Little Mermaid trailer looks great. That new Little Mermaid trailer looks wonderful. I mean, it's a very limited thing. It's just a little teaser, but the visual style that they've decided to employ for what underwater looks like. I'm always interested to see what movies that are going to have an underwater element, what kind of technique they use to make it look like everybody's underwater. Like Aquaman had one way of doing it. The Abyss has another way of doing it, all that kind of stuff. But the Little Mermaid one looked really good as far as the techniques, the underwater techniques they decided to shoot. So that's going to be interesting. They announced a few other things too that actually looked fairly good. So it's really weird that the best announcements came at things other than the Lucasfilm and Marvel presentation, which is kind of unfortunate. All right, guys, and that will do it for this little installment of our Mint Mobile Hotline Questions of the Week, combined with a little bit of an open mic. This was our first kind of, and you can tell I'm doing it from home. I am currently in the John Campea Theater. I got we're in my new theater room. This used to be the John Campea Show studio in here. Ann and we converted this into a theater room, and we love it. And tell me what you thought of us doing these once a week, because that's what I'm thinking about doing. I'm thinking about doing these once a week. Let me know if you enjoyed this and if you had a good time doing it. Otherwise, guys, that will do it for me for now. Make sure you guys come back and join us on Monday for the John Campea Show. Whole bunch of stuff to talk about. The moving of Craven. Is Warner Brothers going to get sold to Comcast? A new Karate Kid movie is coming. I mean, there's like a whole bunch of stuff for us to talk about Monday already, and that's still 2 days away. Hope you guys will come out and join us for that. I've got to go get ready now. I'm going to go off to see Jerry Seinfeld tonight. Never seen Jerry Seinfeld do comedy live, and I'm very excited about seeing that tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend for the rest of your week. Thanks a lot for being here, guys, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.